look like. Welcome to this special edition of Sidebar presented by Law and Crime. I'm Chris Stewart in for Jesse Weber. We know it's being reported on from the outside, but to help us get an inside look at everything that is happening inside the courtroom in the Southern District of New York, I want to bring in our law and crime reporter, Elizabeth Milner, who was in the courtroom once again today. Elizabeth, thanks for taking time as court just wrapped. Just first off, what was the mood in there today, day 2 of Cassie being on the stand?
Well, definitely the mood was just, again, kind of like it was for day 1 of Cassie's testimony. A lot of people were anticipating what is going to happen today, what more is our prosecutors going to go over with Cassie. And really today was just kind of a summation of her entire 11-year relationship with Diddy, who she refers to as Sean whenever she's testifying. But as far as today, the mood kind of, it was a little different inside that courtroom. It was, part 2 of her direct examination. We thought that there would be a point where we would get to the cross-examination at some point today. That's not happening. It's going to be happening first thing tomorrow morning. But as far as just the mood in general, Cassie comes in today. She's wearing a long gray dress. She did something similar that she did yesterday, where she just walked directly to the witness stand. Her family was there to support her. Those family members included her mother, her brother, and her husband, Alex Fine. Meanwhile, on the other side of the courtroom, you have Diddy's children. Now, it was a little different than it was yesterday in that his daughters weren't present. And I was actually told by a source that they weren't present for a reason that, it's a reason for a lot of kids. They were there for graduation. They have prom coming up. And so that is why they are not in the courtroom. And that is why they're no longer in the city, actually, because they're flying back home to attend to those types of activities. But so for the most part, those who were there to support Diddy today were one of his associates, his sons. That included Quincy Brown, that included Justin Combs, it included Christian Combs as well as Diddy's own mother, Janice Combs, who was inside that courtroom. So really it was, you had on one side Diddy's family, you had on the other side Cassie's family, who was accompanied by Cassie's attorney as well too. And so that was kind of the mood that was set today. Now, even when Cassie had walked inside that courtroom, Diddy, for the most part, from what I saw, kept his eyes on her, saw her when she had first entered the courtroom, saw her as she walked up to the witness stand. Meanwhile, Cassie, from what I could see of her, didn't really pay much mind to the defendant or the defendant's family. Again, she just made kind of a beeline to the witness stand. And again, she was back under oath. And so, for the most part, she definitely kept her composure. There were emotional points throughout her testimony. I'm sure we'll talk about more in depth in just a second. But for the most part, that was just the general mood of the court, thinking that we were going to get to the cross, but it was still another day of direct examination. And at this point, it seems that Cassie won't even be off the stand until the end of the week.
I want to thank Odoo for sponsoring Sidebar. Odoo is an incredible all-in-one involving Cassie today, Elizabeth. I understand there was a little bit of some drama between the prosecution and the defense. What happened?
So there were actually arguments outside the presence of the jury before the testimony restarted this morning. So even outside of the presence of the jury, Cassie is not on the witness stand. Her family wasn't in the courtroom when these arguments were happening. But essentially, from the defense's point of view, they wanted no communication between Cassie and her attorney whenever she would be under cross-examined witnesses to do. So essentially, the defense, from their point of view, said that it's not an issue about emotional support, whereas the government, in their argument, was saying that the witness should be able to kind of consult with her attorney, under the assertion of privilege. A lot of legal jargon, a lot of legalese there. But from the defense's perspective, they were just concerned about Cassie and her lawyer being able to consult with one another on the testimony. And kind of how that would even happen is, she is a government witness. They were concerned that the government would tell Cassie's lawyer something. Cassie's lawyer would refer it to them while she's under cross-examination. And so they were just a little worried about that. Now, as from the government standpoint, and Maureen Comey was making this argument today, she essentially said, whenever she is talking with the attorneys of the prospective witnesses, that they're really just kind of talking about logistics. They're not talking about testimony. They're talking about transportation. They're talking about security. They're talking about, when Cassie presumably can leave the courtroom, who will follow her out of the courtroom, security and logistics. And so those were one portion of the arguments. Another big argument that was made this morning prior to Cassie restarting her testimony were just marked exhibits from the defense. From the government's point of view, they said that the the defense was not producing their new exhibits. They thought that these exhibits would be shared all the way back in April, which was just a few weeks ago, and said that their goal is not trial by ambush. Whereas the defense says, they are marking a tremendous amount of exhibits, some of these exhibits even, in the government's possession. And so the category about these exhibits were pretty much text messages between Sean Combs and Cassie. And the defense was saying it was pretty much unfair if the government can prepare a witness with these text messages. They said, marking exhibits in response to direct testimony, they can hand over the exhibits essentially. Around the time cross examination starts, whereas the government was making the point that they wanted these exhibits now. They wanted them pretty much ASAP. Again, them pointing back to the fact that these had to be turned in by April, and we're already, in trial right now. We're in testimony right now, and even from the judge's response, he was kind of a little like, "Why are you just bringing this up now while we're in trial? If this was an issue and you didn't have them before the start of trial, why didn't you raise that issue before? And then we could have handled it in this matter, so that way we're not holding up the jury, and so that way we can get the day started." So that took about a good 30 minutes of just back and forth. Between the defense and the government, and essentially the conclusion was just that these exhibits would be turned in around the cross-examination time, so a time that we soon, or the government could soon be getting these exhibits, so that way they can mark it, possibly re-ask these types of questions under redirect. And that's why this testimony is taking a little bit of time, because there's just so much intricate pieces from both sides, that they just want to make sure, again, all their ducks are in a row for the most part. But it seems like from the defense's point of view, they'll hand over the exhibits, just not when the government initially wanted to.
And another person involved with Cassandra Ventura, Alex Fine, who's her husband, father of her children. And first off, you just think of what it must be like for him listening to the testimony that we'll talk about in just a moment of what his wife is saying on the stand about her relationship with Sean Diddy Combs. But what possibility is there that Alex Fine could actually testify at this trial?
From the defense's perspective, it seems like it was kind of a strong possibility. And I say the defense because the defense plans to call him as a witness to kind of impeach his own wife's testimony, which is something that you don't really see every day. So this argument was first brought up just yesterday. And essentially this kind of was about the time frame around 2018 time. So essentially from the defense's perspective, these arguments were brought up yesterday, and this was just about the testimony that was going to be brought in, something that was even talked about today. And this was about an alleged rape that happened in 2018. And essentially from their point of view, they were saying that Alex Fine allegedly threatened Diddy for the most part. They said that that Alex Fine threatened Diddy about Cassie demanding this $30 million, threatened to beat the F out of Diddy. Those were the words that were used in court yesterday. And the defense says that they want to call Alex Fine as an impeachment witness. And the government said, for the most part, that he should be allowed inside that courtroom while his wife is testifying, while his wife is there on the stand to provide emotional support. And I will even say, sitting just a few rows back from him, you could kind of feel the tension just between him and
what up, Sean? Hey, buying in, my people back.
Where he looks visibly upset, in my opinion. He looks like, that he was just reliving this testimony, going through this testimony in extreme graphic detail.
Y'all see me? Y'all know what I'm doing right now. Put it in the chat.
Why did you do this to my wife? This is somebody that I love and I want to protect her. It definitely seemed like it was kind of a protection mechanism, or maybe it was just, his, natural reaction. But you could kind of feel just during some of that testimony today that there were some tense moments. But back to these arguments outside of the presence of the jury that happened yesterday. So the defense says, they wanted to exclude him and get him outside of the courtroom when this alleged rape was in 2018. It was talked about during her testimony. So for the most part, during the duration of her being on the witness stand, he did stay in that courtroom, as well as her brother, as well as her mother, and her attorney as well too. But then when it came to this testimony about the 2018 party that had happened at Cassie's brother's house, and then we're talking about the alleged rape that had happened also in that same year. And that's a big year too, because that was the year that Cassie called it off with Diddy, as she had said. But so when they were starting to get into that 2018 time frame, I did see Alex get up out of the courtroom, walk out of the doors, and he didn't come back for the rest of her testimony, mainly because of these arguments that happened outside of the presence of the jury yesterday.
I know how emotional it was yesterday in the courtroom.
Yes. We back in the building with another podcast vlog news type shit. And this is RDP vlog. And I'm your host, Ham 5000, man. And I'm usually saying good morning, but I want to say welcome back. You know what I'm saying? I usually be busting out the gym, but I know I got to put in that work. It's that 30 for 30, man. It's 2 out of 30. We going in. We be back 6 in the morning. I promise y'all didn't eat nothing heavy tonight. We working. Y'all shout out to Candy Cane, Charlene in the building. I know y'all miss me, man. But I was a little sick. I was going through a little something, but I'm back, man. You know what I'm saying? You know, you know what? I deserve in 6 hard years, I deserve to slack. And no man should slack. But I just, you know what I mean? Things go on, man. And but I'm back, bro. I'm back full throttle. Vlogs coming out, popping out. A few concerts coming up, linking up with a few artists. Hey, the camera's gonna be rolling. The 16 Pro Max gonna be rolling. The A7 Sony's gonna be rolling. Everything's gonna be rolling, man. Picture perfect. Shout out to my man, Nick TV, man, too, man. Somebody broke in his car and stole his stuff, man. You know what I'm saying? Shout out to everybody working, but I'm working, man. I'm back grinding. But we got Diddy, man. Everybody got comments on Diddy. So this is the 3rd day of the trial. Cassie has said some very damaging things to the case. Some people buying in and everybody is on. You know what I mean? So it's different. You know what I mean? It's different. It's different. It's tough for that boy. You feel me? It's tough for that boy right now. You know what I mean? It's tough for him. But the defense ain't talked. The defense haven't talked yet. So it's just the prosecutors doing all their body tapping. Defense ain't come back yet. Defense ain't get busy yet. They didn't get busy. And they saying it's dirty in that courtroom too. They saying it's dirty in that courtroom with Diddy. So I want to say this. If you look at the internet, it's video surfing of Cassie and Diddy having a good time. One thing that Diddy is guilty of is domestic violence. Yes, indeed. There's no way around that. Guilty on all counts of domestic dispute. You know what I mean? But listening to Cassie, because there's no tape, nobody has the audio. All you were getting is reporters coming out, jotting down whatever they could get and bringing it to us, right? I haven't think in 3 days that the state has proven a RICO, racketeering, sex trafficking. They haven't proved that yet. You know what I mean? They have proved that, him and Cassie was in a toxic relationship. They proved beyond a reasonable doubt. But it's a lot of video surface of them having a good time. But because of the beating video, that put Diddy in a bad situation. But Diddy not on trial just for Cassie. That's what y'all got to realize. He's not on trial for Cassie. You're on trial for sex trafficking and a whole bunch of stuff. And stuff that was nasty, that he wanted her to put men's semen on his nipples. Like, I certain stuff, man. I just, I couldn't, stomach it all. But certain stuff, you be like, come on, Cassie, you taking it too far. I can't even lie to you. But let's get back to it.
For example,
hit that notification button, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment.
Going by Pop, and again, that was a name that he liked her to call him, and this was actually a nickname she even gave her grandfather. This is something we had learned yesterday. So these text messages said from Diddy to Cassie, call me. He also said, yo, please call me. I got 6 kids. Please call me. Yo, please, I'm surrounded. Call me, my kids, help. And then Cassie said, put a robe on. And that was because he was running around in a towel, something we had all saw through this surveillance video. Diddy's texting her back, call me now. Cassie said, I went and checked everything. As long as you don't disturb the guests, you're good. The guests being the other ones in the hotel room. And then we had learned who this mysterious escort was who was inside that hotel room. And it was this man named Jules, somebody that they used often during these freak offs. He was an escort, and he was somebody that we saw an exhibit photo of him. He is a light-skinned man. He appears muscular, couldn't really tell necessarily. He has a bald head. And then she says she doesn't remember the conversation she had with Jules specifically after this incident had happened until actually another freak off. And so we saw another exhibit photo, this of Cassie. She's wearing sunglasses. It's a selfie photo. And it's a selfie photo of her with a busted lip, or a fat lip as she had called it in court today. And this was taken actually in the Uber after she had left the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles. She had a black eye as well. I mentioned the sunglasses. The sunglasses were covering the black eye, but you could see the black eye just peeking out through the sunglasses. Meanwhile, at this point, Diddy's still text messaging her, saying, call me now,
See,
call me, the
now,
cops are here. You're going to abandon.
So, I'm going to be honest with you. Now, when you say that, you know, when you're talking about, this is a domestic violence case. This is a domestic violence case. That's what I'm trying to get a lot of people to understand. Like, y'all bringing up domestic violence case, you know, what y'all charged him with is not matching up to what she's saying. This is a couple that was into some, you know, perverted things. And like I said, I seen videos today of Cassie dancing and having a good time. It didn't look like a woman trying to get away, bro. You know what I mean? You know, and I'm just saying, bro, I'm not saying all that black eye stuff and all that stuff. He out of order, bro. He has to face his punishment for that. But I just want people to get down to the nitty gritty and the real point. The man is got a RICO trafficking and holding people beyond their will. That's what he's charged with. But I'm telling you, in the case, it's true. He been doing some wild stuff with Cassie. 80% of the shit Cassie saying probably true. It's always that 20% that's you taking it too far. Trying to get the boy put under the jail. But that's what, you know, exes do. You know what I mean? But the domestic part of this, he's not charged with domestic. Domestic is all in this. So if he was charged with domestic violence, I say, boy, I gotta go and take your 5 to 7 years like a man. But the man is charged with sex trafficking, RICO, holding people beyond their will, all this stuff. And the 3 days in trial, the prosecution just didn't prove that yet, from what I'm hearing outside of the courtroom. And that's just me. That's just my opinion. I'm just a RDP. You know, stands for Raw Dope Podcast, the rawest and dopest interviews and content on the planet. No fuck shit, no fake shit, no foolishness. This is my own opinion, dog. I got my own opinion. That's all I'm doing is giving my own opinion, like thousands of these people are. Yeah, I believe that too. That Cassie signed up for more than she can bargain for. I agree 100%. She signed up for more than she can bargain for. That's true. That is true. That is true. She signed up for more what I had could call for, and it got deep. But I feel like at some point that she liked it, but nobody wants to be hit. Nobody wants to be hurt. Nobody wants to be, a woman don't want to be done like that. You know, maybe all the sex and all of, threesomes and foursomes and, freak offs. Maybe she was into that. She probably just wasn't into the putting your hands on her because you mad at her or she want to leave and not letting her go. Shit like that, but I believe that them people had a different. I believe them people was in love and loved each other. You know what I mean? Gave the money up too easy. You get what I'm saying? And I truly believe that she's trying to get him back from when he hurt her. Some of the shit that she involved in, she's not gonna speak about. Right? Yeah, that I want you to myself type shit. Yeah, that is like, boy, girl, I could never really, you know what I'm saying? But it's another lingo though that they don't understand. For people speak.
She had
Let's go hit that notification button, man. Let's get up to 10 likes, man.
Because it was a lot of messages going back and forth, so I had to make sure I had to write everything down. She said, "You are sick for thinking it's okay what you've done," and she said, "Stay away from me." He said, he being Diddy, responded, "Call me. I'm about to be arrested. If you don't pick up, you'll never hear my voice again. Please, I'm getting arrested." And then Cassie responded, "Plugging my phone in and going to bed. You should do the same." Kind of, and for the most part, insinuating that he might have been telling a story or just using this to over exaggerate. And she had brought up another person who the government has said might be a witness in this case, and that being Carrie Morgan, somebody that Cassie was friends with for a number of years, 17 years, according to her testimony. And she had said that her best friend at the time, Carrie Morgan, was upset after seeing Cassie's black eye. She was at her home. She saw this black eye before. She had known that Diddy was physically abusive towards her before. And Carrie was actually somebody who had called the cops on Cassie's behalf. Cassie said once the cops did arrive and spoke to her, she didn't say who did this to her, did this by being physically violent. She said she wouldn't disclose it because she still wanted to protect him. And Chris, I just got to point out here, I think there's a lot of always conversation about why do people stay in these abusive relationships? Why do people keep going back? Why do people return? And just hearing Cassie's testimony from her own mouth today, from her own words, just hearing her tone, because throughout most of her testimony yesterday and even today, she's very soft-spoken. And I don't know if it's nerves. I don't know if it's just because reliving this and even her being emotional throughout her testimony, that this, you could tell this was a very difficult process for her having to relive this entire experience, her having to tell the entire world essentially just everything that she had gone through her 11-year on and off relationship with Sean Combs. You could just kind of feel the emotions kind of going through her, something that I don't think necessarily translates that well through the transcript, but hearing through her, she appeared honest, she appeared very truthful, she appeared very credible in my eyes. And so she had said, she just wanted to protect him. And there was something that she had said a lot of times during her testimony, is that she loved him. She thought that this was what love was. And she just essentially never wanted him to get in trouble or anything. And so that's why she kind of protected him as much as she did. She said even after the 2016 hotel incident that he had come to her apartment. She was on the 17th floor of this apartment. And this is an important part because we'll talk more about the testimony of why the 17th floor is so important in this. But, she had said that Diddy tried to get into her apartment. He was banging on her door, yelling at her front door. She even heard from Diddy's, one of his primary assistants, that being Christina Quorum, somebody who's been named in some of the civil lawsuits against him. She said that she had heard from Christina Quorum that day, someone she refers to as KK. And she even spoke with a man named D-Rock, who worked security for Sean Combs. She said she even went to D-Rock's house that day, said D-Rock and his wife were there for her, somebody that she even considered a friend. And she said the next time she actually saw Sean Combs was at D-Rock's house. And she had went there to Sean's house, or excuse me, she was at D-Rock's house, and then she had later gone to Sean Combs' house, mainly because she had a movie fitting. Because this is also another important part of this testimony, is that she had a movie premiere very shortly after this entire incident, and for the most part, she said she didn't even want to do this particular freak off. She mainly did these freak offs to appease Diddy, to make him happy. But she said she didn't even want to do this particular freak off because she didn't want to pump herself with a whole bunch of drugs, because she didn't want to be tired or slouched. This was something that she had worked hard for, and she wanted to kind of enjoy this moment for herself. So she didn't want to do this this freak off so it would ruin her premiere. But she went to Sean Combs' house for a movie fitting. Then we in the gallery and the jurors as well too saw an exhibit of Cassie in a gold gown. She had sunglasses on while she's doing this fitting picture, and she said it was to cover up a black eye that she had had. And so the photo was taken in Diddy's bedroom. She said she even had to cover up the bruises from this beating by using makeup. She had to use a whole bunch of makeup even on her face to cover her black eye. And then we had seen another photo from that red carpet, from that premiere, where, if you really zoom into it, you could see bruises kind of on her backside. And then we saw another photo, this of Cassie in a green dress. She said this was a dress that she had changed into during this premiere in a popcorn closet of all places at the movie theater. And she had gone to an after party with Diddy. So we saw an exhibit of Diddy on her arm, and they were sitting together at this after party, and you could see a bruise on her leg. She said she had a bruise on her right shin. She also said she had bruises on her thighs. And so we really got an in-depth picture of, one, what had happened at the Intercontinental Hotel from her perspective, but also even the the aftermath of just having to kind of cover everything up emotionally, physically, with makeup, and then just go off and act like everything was picture perfect. And so, it was a stark difference from seeing that surveillance video and then seeing a red carpet photo of the two of them together, a photo that we and ourselves even have in house, and just seeing that she appeared happy, but knowing that on her body, a bunch of bruises given to her by her boyfriend at the time.
And as all of this is playing out in the courtroom, and you have very emotional testimony from Cassie, you have these images, selfies that she took, like with busted lip. And I know it can be tough to tell, but how does it seem to be playing with the jury?
Well, from the jury's perspective, from what I see, because it's really kind of hard to see them at all points, but from where I was sitting today, I will say they kept pretty stone cold throughout this entire testimony. And that's kind of hard to tell, mainly because, I don't know what their reactions are going on inside their head, even us in the gallery. For the most part, we're kind of, stone faced. And then when we get outside of the courtroom, and then we're just like, oh my God, that was a lot. So you really don't know what was kind of going through their head. But I will say, from my perspective, from what I could see, I didn't necessarily see anybody getting emotional or wiping away tears, but you definitely could tell that the jurors were laser focused on Cassie and just the line of questionings. There were some glances at Diddy as well too throughout this testimony, but for the most part, you couldn't really tell their emotion. So no idea what's actually going on through their heads while they're listening to all of this.
And today there was a lot of talk about the escorts that.
Man. Now, back if they was charging Diddy with domestic violence, he will be done. I'm just be honest with you. Domestic violence, you got him, bro. You have him. I'm saying, damn, Diddy. I gotta be honest with you. It just make me say from the bottom of my heart, damn, Diddy. Damn, Diddy. Like, what the fuck wrong with you? That's if Diddy, if we was watching New York or California, Diddy on trial for domestic violence, Diddy's getting found guilty. But where is the sex trafficking allegations at, bro? That's what I want to get into. Where's force at? You know what I'm saying? She admitted in open court that I was doing this to make him happy. So this wasn't forced upon me. You thought, you sleeping with men and wiping come on me and all that make me happy. You know what I'm saying? That's your thoughts. Like, that's insanity. You know what I mean? And then her friends, stepping up, telling her, but I'm like, yo, that money, like, she wasn't going back to where she come from, after having the taste of that. And I just feel like domestic violence, putting his hands on her, he wrong. Any man that do that is wrong. You get what I'm saying? And it happens. You get what I'm saying? But to the degree with black eyes, running out of hotel rooms with your, man, and then she saying this because she ain't want to have a threesome, with another dude, bro. Like, it's insane. You get what I'm saying? It's insane. It's insane. You know what I mean? But like I said, bro, you can't be partying and hanging out there one day say you don't want to do it no more. You know what I'm saying? If you don't want to do it no more, you gotta remove yourself all the way. You know what I'm saying? She doing movie for me, so I know she had money. You feel what I'm saying? She had money, you know what I'm saying? So, you know what I mean? It was something that she liked, you know what I mean? And she's trying to convince the jury, and the prosecutors are trying to convince the jury that this was all forced upon her. And I just can't wait till the defense get on it. Now, one thing for sure, I know the defense is not going to jump up and say this woman haven't been assaulted. This woman has been violated. But I don't think this woman has been baped in any type of way. I don't think, this woman was forced into these acts. I think this woman participated willingly and knowingly and was having a good time. You get what I'm saying? At some point, people get tired, people get exhausted. Some point, you tired of partying and then your party partner still want to party. You know what I'm saying? This is one of those cases. You know what I mean? You tired of partying, your partner still want to party. So they just gassing, yo, come on, do some more. You know what I'm saying? If I was a defense attorney, that's how I would come with it. Like, we've been in college where somebody's been pissy drunk and a person tell him, drink another shot. You know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Like, come on, nah, man. You know what I'm saying? You into this. So with that being said, that's when I'm like, yo, you was doing drugs, you was doing all this shit, yo. It's a just say no. And it's plenty of times in a situation that I can't say he was forcing it. You was scared of him because you had other relationships. You were dating Kid Cudi. So y'all was breaking up. And then one thing they've been using heavy since his Diddy cases, on and off girlfriend for 11 years. So you done left this situation. You done moved on this situation. You say the man blew Kid Cudi up, he was threatening. He threatened and did all of these threatening and made you come back once you was gone. You know what I mean? All that plays a major part. And then before you went to the police, you went to him and asked for $30 million. You know, I'm not with none of that. Understand what I'm saying? Or doing stuff to women, or vaping women, or fawning with little kids, or holding somebody beyond their will. I'm not into that. I'm not with that. You get what I'm saying? I'm not even into the domestic violence shit, but it has happened. It has happened in my life. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid to admit it. I'm not afraid to man up. I'm not afraid that I was wrong. But you know, some women are off the hook. I just don't believe that she ain't smacked the shit out Diddy before. I don't believe it. I believe she put her hands on Diddy before. I believe it was just a whole thing because he's older, she's younger. You get what I'm saying? But we seen Diddy get out of order. We don't got the tapes with her getting out of order. So Diddy is guilty as charged when it comes to domestic violence. He is, bro. He is. I'm telling you that at times. Is it, Diddy? You know what I mean? But Diddy's not being charged with domestic violence. You know what I'm saying? That how she the witness of the case that I just for what she claimed that I did to her, she got her lawyers to come and threaten a lawsuit, and we settle out of court for 30 million. That's what makes this funny. Like she shouldn't have she's supposed to be zipped. You know what I mean? She got the bread and she trying to send him to jail. You know what I mean? That's it. She got the bread and she testifying against him. You know what I mean? Money don't make problems go away. But I still haven't heard proof that he was holding people beyond their will. That's just where I'm at with it.
And there were several names that were brought up. What stood out to you with those names that were brought up in court?
Yes, so we saw a lot of photos, a lot of these escorts. And so, for example, we saw just a bunch of back to back exhibits. One from a man named Ash. He was hired through this escort service called Cowboys for Angels through this man named Garen. And this was someone they would fly out to Las Vegas, to Ibiza. There was an escort who she didn't know the second name, but she remembered that he was hired by Cowboys for Angels, saw him in New York. There was an escort named Islander, somebody who was hired mostly in Las Vegas, in Los Angeles. There was a man named Tommy, also hired through Cowboys for Angels. This man was used in Miami. Another escort whose name she couldn't remember, used in Los Angeles. An escort named Skylar, hired also by Cowboys for Angels, used in Los Angeles. There is another escort through Cowboys for Angels named Jake, used in Los Angeles as well too. Couldn't remember another escort's name, also through Cowboys for Angels, used in Los Angeles. There was a man named Greg, used in Miami. She didn't remember how he was hired, if he was hired through Craigslist or Backpage. And for the most part, if she could remember, it was through Cowboys for Angels. She said that it was through Cowboys for Angels. Another escort whose name she didn't remember, but remembered him from Freak Offs, an escort named Brian, hired as an escort in New York. He was booked through Craigslist. A man named Ben was hired through Cowboys for Angels as well too, through the man named Garrett. He was booked in Los Angeles, Las Vegas, and I say all these different cities mainly because that's how frequent they were. She said she did hundreds of these freak offs, but there was one particular escort that stood out to me, and that's because he's a familiar face. Not because I know this personally, but because this is somebody we've covered so many times here at Law and Crime, and this was an escort named Jonathan. Obviously, I know Jonathan's last name to be Audie. We saw his photo. I remember his face, and he's a big name. Maybe somebody that people didn't kind of click right off the bat, but I definitely did. This was an escort that definitely stood out to me. Why? Because he did an interrogation after he was in another incident. I don't think it had anything to do with sex crimes or anything like that. It actually had to do with Trump. And when he was interrogated, he was pretty much saying that he was a sex slave for Sean Combs and Cassie. And nobody at the time believed him. Everyone thought that this man was just going on a wild, crazy tangent, that he was just saying things out of his behind. But Cassie confirmed today that he was an escort that they had used in these freak-offs. So it seems like from, Jonathan's perspective that he was telling the truth the entire time, and that, while the claims were made years before this case even went to trial, years before Cassie had even filed her lawsuit, people didn't take him seriously. But Cassie herself confirmed today that Jonathan Audie was definitely an escort that they had used previously, and said that she had seen him several times, specifically in Miami. And so that was definitely a name that was brought up that stood out to me. But this is just some of the escorts that they had booked for these freak offs. And Cassie said she had booked them again through services like Backpage, through Craigslist, through Cowboys for Angels. And these escorts, essentially, especially the ones that they were more comfortable with, were flown to different places, kind of making this argument, for counts 3 and 5, transportation to engage in prostitution. And so that was one, again, definitely a name that stood out to me. But again, that was just some of the escorts that Cassie and Sean Combs had used during their freak-offs and their freak-off sessions.
Yeah, and to your point, I mean, it just seems like there were so many names just today and locations that were already being laid out in this testimony that she's having with the prosecution. What is it like to be in the courtroom? The video from the Intercontinental Hotel in Los Angeles, we have all seen it. There's few people, I feel like, in the world that haven't seen that video at this point. But what's it like to be in the room as Sean Combs is there and that video is being played?
So this was a video that, we have seen for a while now, that even being, going back as far as just last year. But then even for jurors, they've been seeing this video essentially every single day since trial, and it's only Wednesday. And so from what I could see, just of Diddy's reaction while this video is being played, it seems like this is kind of a point where, anything that had to do with physical abuse, you can kind of tell. And I say kind of like that mainly because, again, I don't want to make assumptions of what's really going on in his mind, but I feel like you could kind of tell this is something that he's ashamed of. Definitely. I think there were points where he kind of, even in between breaks, when the jury's out and stuff like that, he kind of looked at his sons, and he had looked at his associates or friends in the courtroom, and just kind of was just like kind of reassuring them that, are they okay? Is he okay? That type of thing. But again, this is a video that he's seen a number of times. And so he didn't have a big emotional reaction to seeing this video played out again in court. But, never know necessarily what is 100% going on in his mind as this video is being played, and as all of these allegations and everything is being displayed again out in open court.
And you're one of the few people who have seen Sean Combs since he's been arrested, because he's transported to the courthouse. He's in prison, or in jail, excuse me, for the moment. And just what mannerisms have stood out to you? Because we all know the mogul, we all know Sean Combs and Diddy and all of this, but to see him in this position as a defendant, what mannerisms have stood out to you so far in this trial? Just watching how Sean Combs interacts with his attorneys and sits there at the table.
Well, as he's sitting at the table, he looks very differently than when I was covering him during those pre-trial hearings, in that he's not in a jumpsuit anymore. He's not in that MDC issue tan jumpsuit. He's in kind of more of a toned down look, even from when he was even prior to when he was arrested. Normally prior to his arrest, we see him in designer clothes, we see him in sunglasses, but now it's completely different. We see him very much toned down in neutral colors. For example, today he was wearing a cream sweater, white undershirt. He had gray slacks on. The previous day we had seen him in gray sweater, gray slacks, and even before that we were seeing him in a navy sweater and navy slacks. And so for the most part, his mannerisms in the courtroom, he is very much participating in his own defense. He is intently listening to all the testimony that's been given. So far, it's just been Officer Israel Flores, as well as Daniel Phillip, one of the escorts, and then Cassie herself. And for the most part, he is just jotting down notes, handing them off to his attorney, asking questions. There was moments that photos were shown inside the courtroom. He's looking at these photos. He's looking at these exhibits. So from the mannerisms, I could tell of him, he's very much so participating in his defense. Even during the pretrial hearings, I would notice he would look off into the gallery. He's not doing that this time around. He is very much focused on what is going on with this court case, is again taking those notes down. But I will say one thing that also stands out to me is that he looks at all the jury members each and every time that they come into this courtroom, which, from my perspective, I can only imagine how intimidating that might feel from theirs. But they don't know Sean Combs to the full extent that maybe we do, because we've been covering this case so often and so much. But Diddy, for the most part, from the mannerisms I could see of him, he definitely is not taking this very lightly. He is definitely paying attention.
I wouldn't take it lightly
this
either.
process very seriously. And it seems that, we can expect a lot with this cross-examination of Cassie, possibly off of some of the notes that Diddy himself had said, because from the defense's perspective, they have been chalking this up as kind of a toxic relationship, a domestic violence issue, that this isn't necessarily sex trafficking or RICO or transportation to engage in prostitution. Obviously, they're defense attorneys, they're defending their client, but for the most part, we kind of know essentially what the defense is, something that Mark Agnifilo had even said, that they're kind of, have had the defense on their shoulders this entire time. They kind of let everybody know their strategy, essentially, and that's discrediting the witnesses, chalking this up to being a domestic violence that and nothing criminal, and that these freak-offs were consensual, that Cassie wanted to be there, that she didn't necessarily say no. But there were points in her testimony today where it was clear that she had said no to some things, and I'm sure we'll talk about that in a second.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, let's talk about the freak offs, because some visual evidence is starting to be presented in the.
Man, it's tough. And she was just right. The defense, like I told y'all earlier on, the defense are definitely gonna come from the angle of she participated in this. She knew what was going on. She was calling escorts herself, and that's true to the fact. But man, this shit, opening up doors could lead to this. So, I hope like a lot of young women, you know, sisters, out there, take heed to this. You want to get in this industry that's male dominant. You have to keep your composure, and you have to know your nose got to be nose. You can't think that your body is gonna bring you the ticket. You know what I mean? You got to get that out your head. It is some women out here that their body has got them the ticket, but they have went through so much. So when you sign up for this, what Cassie went through or what she's claiming she went through, is that worth $30 million? And that's just something that you have to think about. Is that worth actually $30 million? Is that worth a 10 album deal? Is that worth being a celebrity? You like a guy, and then the guy's telling you, hey, let's party, let's have a threesome, and it's not, you know, no women are being, engaged in this. So it's like, how could you think that someone love you that you're not married to? You know what I mean? Like, like if you're married to a woman, let me cook. Okay. If you're married to a woman and like Adam 22, for instance, before he got married, one of his gifts to his wife was she's a porn star, she wanted to be with a black guy. That's what he gifted her. So if you and your wife is into that, y'all into that, right? She wasn't married, you know to this man, honestly, and they were going on missions. Now these missions seem to be one-sided to me. You know what I mean? It's one sided. You get what I'm saying? It's him and another dude every time. What it seemed to me is what she's testifying to. So you say that she's testifying that she called up escorts. She's picking out her type. Some escorts it's multiple times. And this is for $30 million, later on after you went through all this. And you in court with your husband in court saying that you did this over 100 times. Sheesh. At what point in life that this money got you so brainwashed that you think that something good gonna come out of that? You know, uh, Hollywood is a crazy place, but You know, I got a mother, I got a sister, I got daughters, I got goddaughters, you know what I'm saying? I got, family, we all do, but it's like, yo, if my family member think that, yo, you gonna be shitting on your cousins now, you fuck with a rich older dude, and you taking all this wood, you know what I'm saying? You taking all of this abuse in the name of money is crazy work. You get what I'm saying? It's crazy work. It's beyond gold digging. It's beyond chasing success. It's beyond this world. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It can't be. No, it's let me help you out, Candy Cane. It's definitely a real place. It's definitely a lot that come with that place. One strong woman, Monique, spoke up. Different women speak up about it, and different women keep their composure, and they might can't shoot to the star. Big movie premieres, platinum records. You know what I mean? They say fuck that shit. You get what I'm saying? I'ma still do music and get on the road. Look at Miss Long Hill. You get what I'm saying? I ain't ready to get to playing these games. Have my kids and being with who I love, and I'll do shows and I'll do it. Y'all can have that shit. You know what I mean? But 19 years old getting in the game, you young and dumb. You know what I mean? But 11 years into this is crazy. Again, the big part that I am sitting on the jury is I understand 100% that this is domestic violence and he's not charged with domestic violence. It wouldn't take the jury but a half an hour to come back with a guilty verdict or domestic violence. Yeah. And you full of cum and you busting them joints. You busting them joints, Miami, Las Vegas, Turks and Caicos. Oh, you getting enough of that. You getting it all. You get what I'm saying? Videotaping it all. You getting it, putting the cocaine in you with the ecstasy. You know what I mean? The weed, the liquor, you just going for bad. Then you come about that high in your body, exhausted. You drink. You know what I'm saying? You drink, and then and this man going again. You know what I'm saying? Again and again and again. Going so much, she's saying she can't even do music. This is what she's doing now. She just getting cracked. Every chance you get, she said, the long this lasts 3 days. You know what I mean? I could see somebody fucking 3 days. But you saying you just getting ground and pound every time you go. My question would be the weirdest question to ask. How many times did you and Diddy just have sex? That's the big question. Yeah, I know. Y'all tell me in the comments I should have been a lawyer, but that's how many times did you and Diddy have sex by yourself? That's the question. How many times did Cassie and Diddy have sex by themselves? That's the question I would ask if I was a defense lawyer. Because if you tell me that you never had sex with this man by yourself, I'm gonna rest my case. You ain't fall in love with him. You ain't have him one-on-one, baby. You fell in love with that party. He just kept you on your arms because he loved the party. You know what I mean? Yeah, like, come on, my nigga. How many times did you have him by yourself? If you saying y'all was together, let me break it down to y'all. You said that, let me break it down to y'all how bad this is. Like for Cassie, with her husband sitting in there and kids got to look at this for years, right? Listen to me. Right. All right. Let's take a note of this. Cassie said she was dealing with Diddy on and on for 11 years. She said she had hundreds of these freak offs with multiple different men. So let's just do 100 divided into 10 years. You know what I mean? What that is? That's 120 months. So she's saying she got a man per month. hundreds of these freak offs per month. Per month. Some lasting 3 days, 2 days, the norm. You know what I mean? Good night, whole day. You know what I mean? One day is definitely you going all day. I'm saying, like, what? Diddy, man, it's more. It's only day 3, day 4 tomorrow. I'm just saying. That's my big question. How many times did you and Diddy have sex? Just you and Diddy by yourself. That's it. It's every time that you and this man kicked it. Was it a party? That's the big question.
Courtroom. What were you able to see today? What was shown?
Yeah, so the freak offs were definitely a major point and a major sticking point throughout her testimony. Drugs were talked about during these freak offs because she essentially did enough drugs to disassociate from her testimony today. She did things such as ketamine in the initial part of their relationship. She said she even did opioids. She did Valium and Xanax and GHB and cocaine and marijuana. She drank alcohol. She was taken to sex clubs with Diddy, and essentially, she said there was a lot of times where she just felt objectified, that freak offs were all that she was good for. She had talked about an incident during her 29th birthday where she just wanted to have a dinner with her friends. She wanted to do karaoke, but Diddy wanted to do a freak off, and she was pulled away from her friends. Some friends that she actually wanted to be with, and she essentially gave up fighting Diddy and did this freak off, something that she didn't want to do. Blackmail was talked about, sex videos of her, sexually explicit videos of her, freak off videos of her. He would mention these to her when he was angry, and she said that this was something that he commonly did. She said that there was one time she dated someone else, and Diddy had threatened to put these videos out, and he did this several times with her, because even throughout their relationship together, there were still points that these two were on and off away from each other. But when she would date somebody else, she said that Diddy would threaten to embarrass her and ruin her by putting out these images. She said she feared for her career, for her family, and her family being her mother and her brother. She said it's horrible and it's disgusting, and she said that he would make her feel like an SLUT. She said she didn't even want to be recorded. There was a point talked about through text messages from July 22nd of 2013 where Cassie was saying, please delete any video out of your phone. You have too many people who have access to your stuff. And she said, and Diddy said, I did, and no iCloud. And I'm paraphrasing here. He later on said, taking an Ambien, good night. As far as the videos themselves, she said that in 2014 that she was hosting a party and someone said that they saw a sexually explicit video of her. And so she had called Diddy. He had texted her, I called, pick up. When did he say he saw it? You're going to tell him that this is your life and this is serious. And then said, are you talking to him yet? This being the person who had told her about seeing these videos of her, and said that they had a whole discussion at a restaurant with his security involved. And it was pretty much the security's role in this whole scenario was to intimidate these people about why they were talking about the sexually explicit video. And she said that essentially everyone at this meetup was scared and confused about it. She said that Diddy's bodyguard, Uncle Polly, was there. Her former manager, James Cruz, was there, someone who had worked with Diddy. She had talked about the recoveries of these freak-offs. But I will say there was a big discussion yesterday just about whether or not these videos or still images would be shown to the gallery, to the general public. So there was a whole issue just yesterday about whether or not we being the public and we being the press that was inside that courtroom and those in the gallery would be able to see these images of the freak-offs, whether they were still images or video images. The judge essentially ruled not to show them to the public, to the gallery, and something that will be under seal whenever they release all these exhibits. And it's mainly because that they didn't want to re-victimize the victims. And so from what the discussion was today, these images were still shown in court. However, they kind of made a big adjustment to doing that. And that, you know, when the jury was dismissed, they kind of turned the cameras, or excuse me, not the cameras, the computer monitors where these jurors see these exhibits, see these photographs. They turned them a little bit in, mainly so nobody could kind of peek at them through the gallery. Even for the attorneys themselves on both sides, they were given a binder of these images instead of showing them on their computer screens, just so that way nobody could see them. But we got a description of what these photographs look like just through Cassie's testimony. And so she was asked, you know, do you recognize this individual? And she said that she did. It was an exhibit of the escort Jules, who was in that hotel room during the Intercontinental Hotel incidents, an escort that they had frequently used during freak-offs. And it was a photo from a video of a freak-off. And then Cassie had said that she gave these images over to the government from broken devices that she had, you know, and those included iPads, computers, former phones that she had used, but she had kept. And then I could see, even just from sitting in the gallery, Diddy looking at these images. He was looking over Ana Maria Estebeo's shoulders just to kind of take a peek at these images. I couldn't tell much of a reaction that he had just kind of sitting from where I was sitting after he saw these photos. But then there was another photo of Cassie and an escort named Dave in a freak-off. There was another photo of Cassie and an escort named Greg in a freak-off. There was another photo of Cassie on the couch. She had linens on her. The linens were on the floor. She was in high heels. She had water next to her, and she had said that she had used water often during these freak-offs just because of how long these freak-offs were, how dehydrated she would get, mainly from the drug use, that she'd have to have water near her just to stay hydrated through this. There was another photo shown with Cassie with oil all over her. There were candles around her. There were lube tops around her. And those were just kind of the vivid descriptions that we had seen through her testimony. And again, we didn't see these images ourselves. They're going to be kept under seal, so only the jury and the respective parties are going to be able to see those. But those were just some of the images that they had brought up today as far as the freak-offs go.
You know, Elizabeth, we talked about Cassie's husband being in the courtroom. There's another person who was a partner of Cassie once who also came up today. That's a name that a lot of people know, and that's the rapper Kid Cudi. Why did his name come up? How does that factor into this?
Well, he was referred to as Scott Mescudi in court today, and Cassie even referred to him as Scott throughout her testimony. And so Kid Cudi was something that we had known about for a while, right? He was a name that was brought up in Cassie's civil lawsuit against Diddy that she filed in 2023, or towards the end of 2023, that was settled within a day of her filing, and we're going to talk a lot more about that in just a second. But Kid Cudi was brought up today in testimony, mainly because there was a big issue surrounding just the conflicts that Kid Cudi had with Diddy, and the conflicts being that Diddy allegedly sent people to blow up his car. And so Cassie was testifying that they being Kid Cudi and Cassie, dated in 2011. They first started off working together, and they were just friends before they actually started dating. But then when Diddy found out, he actually found out during a freak-off, which was a very surprising part of today's testimony. He said that he was going through her phone and saw an email between Cassie and one of Diddy's staff members named Capricorn Clark. This email was essentially about Cassie getting a toiletry rag. But when Diddy found out about her dating Kid Cudi, she had said that Diddy put a bottle, a wine bottle opener in his finger. So just picture that imagery. You have a kind of a swirly, pointy tip. It's in between. You can kind of see the picture that's kind of painted there. And she had said that he lunged at her, and she just left this freak off. And that was one of the few times she was actually able to leave these freak offs, because for the most part, Diddy had made her stay, according to her. But she said after she had left this freak off, she called Kid Cudi from a burner phone. He had picked her up, and she had this burner phone just so that way Diddy wouldn't even find out that she was speaking to Kid Cudi in a romantic way, or even dating him. And so she said that Diddy's staff member Capricorn Clark did know about their relationship. And after Cassie met with Capricorn Clark, she went to Diddy's house, and Diddy threatened to release freak-off videos of her, and even threatened Kid Cudi. She said at this point that Diddy even kicked her in the back after that, and then we saw a photo of bruises just on her back from this that he had did, according to her. She said after leaving and after this kick to the back, she just wanted to get her stuff from a hotel room, and said that when she returned back to the hotel room that it was completely destroyed. She said that there was even unflushed fecal matter, if you know what I'm talking about, inside the toilet. She said it was essentially just a mess inside that hotel room. And then she had sent an email actually following up to Cassie's mother. It was CC'd on this email, as well as Capricorn Clark, somebody that had worked for Diddy around this time frame. So this was December 23rd of 2011. And if you kind of think about that time frame, that's around the holiday times. And she had sent this saying, and I'm paraphrasing here, threats have been made to me that he'll release 2 explicit videos of me. And she had said that threats were made to hurt her as well as Kid Cudi, and that Diddy wouldn't do it himself because he'd be out of the country, kind of insinuating that he had other people to carry out this alleged crime instead. And she said when she went back home, she had shown her mom these bruises on her legs, on her back. We had seen, again, these photos through exhibits, and this was actually the first time that she had told her mother about the physical abuse she endured throughout her relationship. She didn't necessarily go into full detail about everything that she was enduring throughout her relationship with Diddy, because she said that she was embarrassed to even kind of speak about these freak-offs. But she said that Kid Cudi actually met her in Connecticut and stayed with her around 3 or 4 days around this time frame. And she actually broke it off with Kid Cudi during this time period, mainly because she was nervous just about the threats made by Sean Combs, according to her, to Kid Cudi and herself, and was essentially saying that, you know, she broke things off and nobody would get hurt. Nobody, nothing bad would happen to anybody. Even after this time frame where she broke things off with Kid Cudi, she had went to Arizona to visit Sean Combs, something that she didn't even tell her family about because she thought it would disappoint them. And then even they had a whole meeting, they being Kid Cudi, Diddy, and Cassie herself. They all met together back at Soho House, back in Los Angeles. And Kid Cudi asked about his car, and Diddy said, "What car?" And so essentially there was just there was a meeting that had happened. Diddy had essentially said, "What car?" kind of alluding to the fact that he had nothing to do with it, even though from Cassie's point of view, and even from the text messages and email that we saw, that there were threats that were made, especially after Diddy had found out about their relationship. And so Kid Cudi was a big focal point, especially during the afternoon, especially during that afternoon portion of her testimony, where, again, we were seeing exhibits of physical abuse. We were seeing emails during this point. We were seeing text messages. And so that was a lot, or that took out a good chunk of today's testimony that kind of went on, maybe I would say maybe an hour or so.
And it seemed like from the updates we were getting on the outside that it was, with each anecdote that she was giving, there was a picture that was provided in many cases, whether she had a busted lip or she had a black eye, just kind of detailing the physical abuse that she says that she went through in this relationship.
That's the domestic part of it.
We did learn a little bit about the breakup and how this relationship came to an end. What can you tell us about that?
Yep, and so the breakup, as we know, occurred around 2018, so just a few years ago, honestly. And so around this time, Cassie was saying pretty much that she was abusing drugs during this time frame. She even sought out professional help around 5 or 6 different times while she was in her relationship with Diddy. And so she had essentially said the breakup was initially initiated when she said, from her perspective, that she had known that Diddy was seeing somebody else throughout the duration of her relationship, and she had said to Diddy that, you know, if I see that you're with this girl again, or if you guys are going to continue doing this, I'm done. And she ended up actually seeing a photo of this unnamed woman and Diddy together, and so she said she was done with the relationship. And even around that time frame, so after she was done with the relationship, she even saw Diddy afterwards. After that, she said that they had a closure dinner around sometime in 2018, and by this time she was dating someone else. She was dating Alex Fine, somebody who is her now husband. And then I'm mentioning this specific dinner because she had said at the first, you know, Diddy was nice during this dinner. They were having a good time. And then when they got back to her place, he had raped her in the living room, according to her testimony today. She said that she was crying throughout this experience. She said she was saying no. She said that Diddy's eyes essentially went black, and it was like that he wasn't even there during this. and that he continued to rape her even though she was crying, even though she said no, but still admits that the two were intimate again together even after this alleged rape in 2018. She said that, when she was asked, why did you continue seeing Sean Combs in a sexual manner after this rape, this alleged rape, I need to say, she said that she couldn't just turn her feelings off even after the rape. She said she still had a good vision of who Diddy was as a person, said she couldn't even really hate him. She said that she even stayed in touch with everybody, including, his assistants and security for a number of times. But then, post breakup, her and Diddy would still check in with one another for a period of time. That's up until around 2019. And I bring up 2019 because Diddy had sent a message to Cassie, a text message to her saying, I'll pull up and handle it face to face. No threats and facts that you'll not be threatening me. If I was you, I'd get me my money. You have too many iPads full of skeletons. And essentially what Cassie was saying from this particular message was that Diddy was requesting a refund from her for Alex physically training her because, this is something that we had known for a while now, that Diddy had hired Alex Fine to train Cassie during this time. And essentially he just wanted his money back for that because they were dating around this time frame. Now the two are married. They have, almost 3 beautiful children together. And then Cassie responded, do you want me to tell the truth? Because it's deeper than iPads. And so you could tell just by listening to this testimony that this pain goes back years, at least to 2019, according to this text messages, where, even there was another text message, this one from 2017, where Cassie sent to Diddy, I told you, I think this is all I'm used for. And this, she was referring to with Free Goss. She said, I didn't leave you. I saved you from beating me up. Now let's fast forward to March of 2023. So just a couple of years ago, but think about that time frame. That was a couple months before her lawsuit, the lawsuit that she had filed against Sean Combs, and I'll get there in a second. But during this time frame in March of 2023, she had went to rehab for trauma therapy and for drug use. And she said, and this is where she started getting pretty emotional, is that she didn't want to be alive at that point. And that's a pretty interesting statement for her to make because at this time, us in the public, we had thought she had healed at that point. She was now married to Alex Fine. She already had children at this point. But for her to get on the stand today and say she didn't even want to be alive anymore, it was really gut-wrenching to hear. She said that around this time frame, she was even shooting a music video with an artist. This artist was unnamed. She said that she had really bad flashbacks around this time frame, and to the point where she wanted to unalive herself. She had actually run into traffic, and her husband Alex had to go and get her. And so it was just a very tough point, and it was a pretty hard testimony to listen to because she is visibly upset. She is crying on the witness stand at this point, but she's keeping her composure together as best as she could. Now, after this suicide attempt.
Now, I listen to all that, and y'all listen to all that, but this is the part that's
Bananas to me. That's why when you see me just touching my face and I'm in deep thoughts, they said that, they were having a closure dinner and he baped her. And he baped her and said after he baped her, she didn't want to do this and all that. She went back and had consensual. Man, now, come on, y'all. At some point, Cassie playing. You know how you just listen to something and listen to something and listen to something. You say, all right, now the bullshit coming in. Like that right there, you lost me. And then you go back like, come on, Cassie. You had all these opportunities to be away from this man, and you keep going back and saying you in love. Like, come on, bro. Come on, bro. Like, come on, bro. I just, like I said, some of this stuff is terrible. I believe 80% of it. I believe all the domestic violence stuff. I believe all the domestic stuff that Diddy did. She's saying he did. I believe it. But, certain stuff, bro, that she's saying out her own mouth make us seem fishy. Because once you've been, humiliated, assaulted, and you away from that, you gone, you seeing other people, that person that was your nightmare, seeing other people, you moved on. You having meetings, you're having closure dinners, but then after closure dinner, you go back, you go back to somebody's apartment. Like, come on, like it gotta make sense. You know what I'm saying? Because there's really women out here that stuff is happening to, bro, and it's going unanswered, bro, because of people playing games when they do get answered. You get what I'm saying? Like, end of the day, somebody get put in jail for a long time. At the end of the day, you got to live with this, trauma. You know what I mean? It's not a game. You know what I mean? Just like if you have any part of truth in you, tell the truth. You know what I mean? Tell the truth. You know what I mean? Tell the truth. Hey, look, I got into this. I was partying. I was in sex. I was having threesomes. I was doing all this shit. I got tired of that shit. And man kept wanting me to keep going. I got tired of it. Then, I was confused. And then this and that, he settled out of court. He's putting his hands on me. I said, you know what I mean? Like all this, all this and all that. They taking you through, bro. But that defense, like I said, Diddy defense ain't talk yet. That's what y'all got to get in y'all mind, and y'all got to know Diddy defense team ain't start body tapping yet. They just sitting there prepping for their turn, and they gonna go at her. And some of the things that Law and Crime is sharing with us, from their reporters being out there and hearing it firsthand, is that 2018, you said this man baped you. And when this man baped you, that's one of the most degrading thing you could do to a male or female. That is a crime against humanity. That's why it carries life in prison. You know what I mean? That's why the penalty for that by the court system and when you get in jail is horrible. That's not something you want to be a part of. Baping women, you know what I'm saying? You know what I mean? Forcing yourself on women, and then you get locked up for that. The court system gonna crucify you, and when you get to prison, you're gonna be crucified. So with that just being said, then you think about it. You say, hold up, baby. You say you went for closure, but you went home. If we had closure, we ain't going home together. I'm gonna give you a kiss on the cheek, so but you go home with this man, and you say this man baked you. All right. Bet we got that. All right, you didn't report it. Okay. Then you say you went back with the man and had consensual. You are away from this nightmare. Over and over, you testify be in front of the grand jury at times that you are away from this situation. And not nobody, not one of these times have she said yet that Diddy called me and begged me to come back and was crying and wanted me to come back. Hey, remember what I said? How many times did you and Diddy have consensual sex when y'all first got together? And now, how many times did Diddy beg you to come back when you left? Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's the things you got to think about. She said she got bait, bro. Bait. And you got bait and you left. You got away from this. And you went back. No way. No way. No way. No way. You are sick. At the end of the day, you have to like something in this. Because people that get baked and get hurt like that, they're not running back to the person that hurt them. That just don't make no sense. And you're not a child. You're a grown woman. You could say, this was happening to a kid and the kid just didn't know no better. Okay, that's one thing. But you're a grown woman. You got away from your problem and you ran back to it. He didn't come looking for you. I didn't hear that say that. If I did, y'all put in the comment box. No, they said he called and begged her to come back. No, he called her when, he thought he was going to get locked up. That's it. He was calling her for freak offs. He was taking her to the red carpet. After the red carpet, I got my freak for the night. That's what it seemed like to me. No disrespect to Cassie. She's a mother of, two beautiful kids, and she's about to have another kid. I'm just speaking on the case. All I'm saying is that man was putting his hands on her. He's wrong for that. You know what I mean? He has to face God and he has to face his reality for that. They ain't charging him for that. And this woman, because when somebody's talking and crying and saying everything, I'm not the type of person to just open my heart and just let the sorrow come out. Nah, I'm listening to everything. And because I come from Baltimore. So coming from Baltimore, you learn to listen to everything and making sure this ain't a scam. Make sure women are women are liars. Women play a vicious game just because they can get away with that bait word and stuff. You know what I mean? When they heard about something and want to be vindictive about something, they can do some things and go to authorities and mess your life up. True indeed, it's been done to thousands of men. It's been done to thousands of women. Women can lie with that. So with that being said, my thing is, hold up. Why did you get back with somebody that did this to you? First, you say you got away from them because you don't like these freak offs and you having these escorts and you don't want to do that anymore. You're dealing with other dudes, you get away. 2018, you say y'all have a meet, you meet to your husband and you are already dating, but you still go and see Diddy. You still go and see Diddy. Something Diddy was doing to you that you like. I'm no disrespect to any woman that been in that situation for real, but something in that situation you had to like, Cassie, because you had too many getaway opportunities. You had too many opportunities to get away. Like, stop it. You had too many opportunities to get away. Even if you wanted to do, you could have stayed away and got through that withdrawal. You know what I'm saying? You could have got away from that. You know what I'm saying? You were dealing with dudes already. You've been around the block. Everybody not scared of Diddy and insecurity. You know what I mean? They don't stop making security when they made Diddy security for real. And then, Diddy saying he linked you with the personal trainer that you fell in love with. So I don't know, man. I just feel like in the situation that I'm listening to everything that these reporters are saying, her testimony. And like I said, again, I got a mother, I got a sister, I got a daughter, I got goddaughters. I got aunts, I got, cousins, you know what I'm saying? I got, homegirls, you know what I'm saying? I got all the above. We all have females in our life that we love and we truly adore and that we will go ape for. You know what I'm saying? So I don't believe in none of that. I know between a man and a woman, domestic violence happen. You know what I'm saying? A man shouldn't be baping a woman shouldn't be baping a man. You get what I'm saying? A woman shouldn't be putting her hands on a man shouldn't be putting his hands on a woman. You know what I'm saying? In the ghettos of America, in the suburbs of America, it happens. No degree of it is right, but it happens. But to what degree? To this degree, black eyes before, movie premieres and all this stuff that you saying happen, and you get away from this individual and you keep coming back to this individual. Like, what do you think's gonna get better? That's like having a baby by somebody that got 10 kids. And you know what I'm saying? Like, come on, what do you think's gonna come out here? But you be the 11th parent. Like, what do you think's gonna come out of this? If your significant other just do hard drugs every day and want to just have sex and hard drugs, what do you think's gonna come out of that? You know what I'm saying? In the beginning, everybody, we all get a little hypnotized in the beginning, but sometimes you got to lead the parties. You know what I mean? Some parties last all night, but the motherfuckers definitely got a closing time. So if you know what I'm saying, if you're not smart enough to do that over the years, in 11 years, you gain some type of sense to know this ain't right and this ain't what you should continuously do. But if you continuously do it, it's something that you like in that. And that's just what I believe. You get what I'm saying? And like I said, I don't believe, a lot of things. And I'm listening to everything. And just off of what they were genuinely talking about on Law and Crime, honestly, it's got me, I'm listening to everything that these people are breaking down word for word and line for line, and I'm paying attention. And like I said, the thing is how much that y'all have consensual sex by yourself. And that was one of my questions. And another thing is, after he baped you in 2018 and you got away, you're testifying that you went back. How, and another thing, my third question was, how many times did he call back for you after you performed and you got away and you wanted to stay away and you flew out and your people didn't know about this? And I know relationships, girls don't put their mother in their business, guys don't put their parents in their business. It happens like that. I'm not knocking her for that. But I am just being so honest and being so 100 with you. What, you know, the things that you're saying, it's like, how somebody could just overdo it. Like, all right, you won the jury over, this, we seen the tapes, we hearing this stuff, now you're going overboard. But like I said, one thing that's sticking to me, you saying this happened to you and you went back. And I am really, 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 really interested in knowing more. So listen, man, if y'all don't do nothing, man, do me one favor. Hit that notification button, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment, man. I'm gonna jump off, man, and get back, and just update y'all in the morning, man. I'm gonna go in about Tory Lanez and a few other people, man. But please hit that notification button, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment, get to know me, man. Get a bit familiar back with the face. I've been out the algorithm, but I'm feeling much better, man. Confidence is built up. We're gonna cover this Diddy story. We're gonna get into Tory Lanez and we're gonna get into going around, the globe how I do. But hey, again, hit that notification button, hit that subscribe button, drop a like, leave a comment. No fuck shit, no fake shit, no foolishness. Anything you say can and will be used against you on the internet. Raw Dope Podcast Vlog.